early days. I mean, seriously, look at me. What would I bother doing that for? Yeah? Hundreds of thousands of apps within 2 years. Hundreds of thousands of apps. Expect the same sort of innovation to be unleashed. But it does need us to take a lead, and I promise you we will be.
We deliver e-health into about 25 cities in Victoria. At the moment, our town and region is not necessarily on any of the priority lists of NBN. How do we get on the list
All the engineers can now stand up and meet a user. I know they don't normally deal with human beings, engineers. So I've told all these jokes to the NBN guys to their faces. They hate me. Look, we're working with them. We'll be announcing in the next probably month the 12-month build plan. And then I think early in the new year we'll be announcing the 3-year build plan. So the engineers have been designing their rings and working out where they're going next. We've had over 300 councils and communities contact the NBN to ask to be first. There are only 600 councils in Australia, and a lot of those 300 were conglomerates, so there were half a dozen councils came together. We have had an extraordinary response right across the country from particularly local government, community organisations like your own that know what the benefits are, begging to be first. We just can't make everybody first, but the most important message that I give to people now is it's organic. You don't need to be on the first or second release site list because it just grows from there. So I think we've announced some trials of wireless around Ballarat. We're doing Bacchus Marsh. So it grows out organically. Now, I can't promise you it's going to grow organically in your direction just yet, but you'll have at least a bit more information of where you're going to be covered. Yeah, no, look, I mean, please, the question I get asked more than any other question anywhere in the country is, when can you do my home, street, suburb, city? That is fair income, the question I get asked the most. Not, you know, is Tony Abbott a good bloke? People really, genuinely want to know when we can connect them. So, and you know, I know all about your fabulous operation that you guys have got going there. If I could drag them screaming and kicking to a piece of fibre in your direction, I would love to, but I couldn't promise you that I could get an outcome. They genuinely, it's based on where the rings are, where Telstra's infrastructure is available. But we will do all of Australia. It is a 9 to 10 year job, given we move to 93%. Please bring out the food. I'm used to people eating and drinking while I talk. I like people who finish the rolls because they're easiest to throw. Yeah. Any other questions? Sorry. Yeah.
Jeffrey Bowles, Starship. Speaking as I do on behalf of the advertising industry in the country, there's a lot of disquiet amongst advertisers, as you know, about fragmentation. Broadband seems to be promising 2,500 plus television channels. Our fear is that the eyeballs will be disappearing. From a government point of view, that means that there's a lot of communications that are absolutely critical to you, like diabetes and these sorts of messages that one needs to get across. What messages are you putting in place to be able to give blanket broadcast messages to the public via the NBN?
Yeah, look, that's a really interesting question. That's a challenge that's been facing every business, not just the government. We, as always, have been a bit slower in even moving online to seek.com for job ads. That's taken a bit of a struggle. The eyeballs have been a bit slow in following. Sorry, the dollars have been slow in following the eyeballs. I know of major TV companies where they're 15% ahead in dollars than where the eyeballs used to be. In other words, 15% more eyeballs have gone over online, but the revenue hasn't followed them yet. And they're thinking about it from the point of view, oh God, that money will follow them eventually. We absolutely have to lift our game to do more promotion right across all of the social networking, across all of those sort of NBN-enabled platforms that are now going to be there. But it was a major victory to get government job ads put onto Seek and other online. The good news is the bloke that did it here in Victoria was hired by the federal government 12 months or so ago, and so he gets... I know the bloke's in charge of government advertising because I know him from Victoria. He gets it. It'll take some time to work its way through the public service, but NBN Co won't make that mistake, and my government/promotion of the NBN won't make that mistake. But you're dead right that we've been very slow.
The issue is really how do you talk to the public
Yeah.
on mass, on all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And the advertising has just got received of it.
No. I mean, Harold Mitchell is one of our national broadband champions, so I've talked about this with Harold. He thinks the future is all digital, it's all online, and he argues that consistently in the papers. He says, I helped create a digital business, and this is where it's all going to go. The TV stations, the newspapers, they're all struggling with it. I can't pretend to you that we're ahead of businesses that are going, oh my God. I mean, if you look at the disruption to business models, I mean, you might say the music industry got hit first, disruption to business model. The film industry is staring down the barrel. Car yards. How many car yards have closed down and consolidated because people go online to look at cars now? The book industry. You can just go, the retail sector. If bookshops close down, those big spaces in all the shopping centres are hit. So this is a transformative, disruptive technology that we are facing at the moment, and it will hit politics as hard as it hits the business of government. So I mean, I sit there as someone who's on our national campaign committees, and I go, how are we going to communicate with people in the face of this? So we are devising new ways to try and do that as a political entity as well as a government entity. So I won't pretend to you we've got the answer yet, but at least we know there's a problem and a challenge that we've got to meet. There is one more hand up the back. I'm not trying to stop people eating, but last question. Look, I was just at Melbourne Uni at IBIS. You've seen a lot of money coming to IBIS. In 8 months after we announced the NBN, IBIS was created. People were putting money into it. I was just with Glyn, who's the Vice-Chancellor. He was saying IBM are about to open their lab here, okay, and they've got their top 3 scientists going to be here in Australia for a period, and they're bringing in the best, new and brightest here as well. So I know Intel are desperate to find things to work on here in Australia, make Australia the test lab. One of the reasons that we get so much bank spam, phishing, is because for some reason, we're just a fabulous market for all the scamsters around the world to test their products on Australia. Now, with banks, we've only got 4, so you've got a 1 in 4 chance of getting someone, so it's worthwhile to have a crack at bank phishing. But we get more spam per person or more phishing per person efforts than anyone else in the world. But that also makes it a good reason for us to be a test bed for the real applications that we want to take better of. So I am finding interest from the Intels, the Googles. I mean, David Bartlett, the former Premier of Tasmania, is desperate to get a data centre opened down in Tassie. He says, I've got everything you need. We're hydro-powered, the green benefits. We've got the NBN coming in Tasmania. So there is a pitch worldwide. There is a lot of interest worldwide in coming to Australia. And we've just got to see out the debate over the NBN. But that probably slows down some of the willingness to invest because I think it's going to be knocked over in 2 years' time if we lose the election.
Quick part 2 to that. Since the announcement of Telstra about the separation of last mile infrastructure, have you seen a decrease in the amount of shop-type alternative technology used, shall we say?
Oh no, look, Alan Jones was very excited when they got that report that laser beams had suddenly gone this new incredible speed. And he was on it for days. And then we had Dido the other weekend. I spent a weekend on geek websites trying to understand Dido, which is an enhanced form of MIMO. Now, they disagree with that, but the patent, when you're hunting for patent and venture capital money, it's always a good advertisement to say you've broken the laws of physics, which you actually haven't. So I did spend a whole weekend looking up what Dido was about. Yeah, each time there's a bit of a furore about how wireless is going to change the world. Someone said recently, the future of wireless is wired, because the amount of data that is being... I mean, I was in Aspen in January, and I was speaking to the Aspen Institute, and it's a company based in Aspen, National Broadband Network Company in Aspen, had been hired by AT&T because AT&T knew that 100,000 extra people were coming to Aspen the following week for the X Games, and literally to send a text message, I would put my hand out the window and try 4 or 5 times, and to make a phone call, I would go and stand in the snow in the street. AT&T's network is on the verge of collapse because of the iPad and iPhones. And this little company, they wanted to tell me all about it. They tracked me down, lost the morning skiing, in Aspen, and they actually had been hired to put up essentially a Wi-Fi network, temporary Wi-Fi network, to suck all of the data off the phone network so that the phones would work in the X Games the following week. They sent me all the results a week or two later, and it worked brilliantly. So to people who think wireless are going to replace fixed line, I would invite them to look at the data. I think here in Australia, 91% of data continues to be downloaded on fixed line. I don't have to explain to anyone in this room that Wi-Fi is a fixed line issue. Most people think Wi-Fi is a wireless product, and they're convinced that they go home and just because they don't plug it into anything, even though they've switched over to Wi-Fi, that they're using wireless. This is the greatest challenges that I have, trying to explain these sort of geeky things to people in Australia. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Sen Conroy.